We've worked with him. He's on CBS Sports Network radio. He's on The Fan in New York. He's on WIP in Philly. He's got to be America's top utility man right now in the industry. Jody, how are you, brother?
Peter Gammons once called me Ben Zobrist of Sports Talk Radio.
The Ben Zobrist. Wow.
That's correct.
That is awesome. Mac, man, how are you, brother?
Hey, what are you talking about? Of course I bet on golf.
Yeah, he does.
Harry's the only one?
Just going to say.
Harry, during the break, was dropping all the worst profanities at Patrick Reed you could ever think of.
On Thursday afternoon, huh?
Yeah.
You're at the TV already by Thursday afternoon?
Hey,
I don't want to be around him on Sunday.
Hey, Jody, they're putting 65s on the board on the first day. You can't make bogeys.
On a par 3, you can't three-putt a par 3. Even I don't do that,
exactly.
Jody.
So now I know I got to root for Patrick Reed. I don't have action this weekend, so I got to jump on Harry's band.
Well, I also got Brian Stewart at plus 10,000 to win it, and he's currently 12th. So
Harry, it's early.
I know.
It's relax.
Jody needs to do me a favor for Brian Stewart.
That's right.
Yes.
Jody Mack.
Brian Stewart. I'll guide him home on Sunday for you.
Jody, do Harry a favor. And, of course, when Harry wins $10,000, you'd bet $1 on it. It's 10,000 to 1?
Yeah, plus 10,000.
Plus 10,000. So how much did you bet?
I'm not divulging that.
If you bet $1, you win $10,000, right?
No, he'd win 1,000.
All right.
Your
See,
math. That's why I'm not even telling you, because your math is horrendous.
Jody Mack, just do him a favor, and of course he appreciates it, which is all that matters. All right, Jody.
Root Mr. Stewart in.
First thing, we got to put you on the hot seat here, so to speak. Are you in the group of, now we have 9 more COVID positives in the NBA, 25 out of 351, and baseball players testing positive, and soccer players testing positive. Are you in the school of, hey, I don't know if we should be able to play baseball or basketball or football or soccer or anything else right now, except golf, because at least they've kept it under control, so to speak.
Oh, and horse racing, which, in case you haven't figured out, I'd bet on that, too.
Oh, come on, I know Jody Mack at the track.
Just lost the third from Belmont, but we won't discuss that. No, I'm all for trying. I am just not a diehard believer. As badly as I want it to happen, I miss sports as badly as you two knuckleheads or anybody else on the planet, and I want to see it back, and I'm dying for it. I'm just trying to be realistic and say, if it happens, great, but I'm not holding my breath. I think baseball is the one shot that's got a chance to actually come back, just because the game itself is played, for the most part, at a social distance. The players are separated on the field, and besides the catcher and the batter in the batter's box together, there is a good deal of distance between all the players. How the hell are the NBA players not going to pass it to themselves? How the heck are the NHL players not going to go into the corner and share COVID if they test positive? And the NFL, God bless Roger Goodell and everything he's done, and the way that they've kept their off-season going and given us sports talk guys a chance to just sink our teeth into something. How do you not spread COVID-19 when you start tackling each other? While I want it, while I'm rooting for it, while I'm hopefully with blinkers on believing in it, truthfully, I don't know we're going to get anything other than baseball this year.
Wow. So what did you think of the way baseball went about their whole situation? Through the media, one side versus the other, and then you find out yesterday Rob Manfred tells Dan Patrick that, we were never going to play anything but a 60-game schedule anyway. So talk about.
But Dan clarified that today, because he got a lot of people saying, well, he said Rob Manfred went on Dan Patrick's show and said 60 games. That's what he said. They obviously had proposed more than 60 games during the time, so he didn't want to make it sound like that 60 games was
negotiating in good faith.
Yeah,
that's what it sounds like.
The way that I understood it was, yes, because they had proposed more than 60 games. If it came down to Manfred just implementing a season, which was part of the Mark agreement, if they couldn't come to an agreement on their own again in the second negotiation, baseball had the power to implement the season. I think what he meant was it was going to be 60. If we were going to implementation, then it was going to be 60. It wasn't going to be any more than that, which I understood. But I think Rob Manfred opened mouth and inserted his foot a couple times here in this negotiation. Mm-hmm. And I'm a fan. I think he's a good commissioner. I think he's done a dynamite job in these negotiations since he joined up with Selig decades ago. But this time he, at times, said some foolish things which only irritated the other side and, more importantly, the fan base. Hopefully we're going to have baseball. Hopefully they get the 60 games in a playoff, and they can at least put this season in the books. But the next time they got to step up and collectively bargain a year and change from now, I think it could be even uglier than this one was.
The great Jody MacDonald. And I think it's safe to say, Jody, people who don't know you, which can't be that many, you're from a baseball family. So baseball, is it still your favorite sport? Because a lot of people say, no, it's old people watch baseball. They're not generating any younger audience, and the people who watch it are the old people over 60 because that's what they'll always watch. Do you believe that? I mean, you're still a baseball guy through and through, are you not?
Yes, and I'm not over 60, so you can not put me in that group just yet, although I'm speaking up on it. Yeah, I'm a baseball guy. I've been a baseball guy my whole life. My father was on part of the original New York Mets in the year that I was born, 1962. So I got no choice. It's in my DNA, and I will never give up on the sport. I fielded too many calls, like I'm sure you guys did. There are millionaires fighting with billionaires. I'll never watch baseball again. They say that, but then they go back to watching baseball, and I believe that that's the case. I think that if they come back, and as I just said with you guys, I think they have a better chance of getting a season up and running and then keeping it running than any of the other major sports. What are baseball fans going to do? Turn away because they had an anti-collective bargaining agreement? BS. They'll be right back in front of their TVs watching every game they can get their eyeballs on.
Do you think this season, obviously, it's about not even a third of what, a little bit more than a third of what the regular season would normally be. You think it'd play out similarly with the same teams, like Yankees, Dodgers, the better teams being there in the end in such a short run?
Can and probably will. But they'll be they're going with the standard playoffs. They couldn't add playoff teams, so it's 10 total, 5 national, 5 American. There'll be one in there that kind of comes out of left field. That it just works well for them. They don't get a lot of COVID-19 positive tests. They build a little momentum and carry it into the playoffs. Could end up in an ALDS or an ALCS. But when we get to the World Series, yeah, I think it'll be the teams that we all thought were going to be there back in February when everybody started reporting to Florida and Arizona.
Jody MacDonald joining us. You hear him on CBS. You hear him everywhere. If you don't hear Jody Mac on the radio somewhere, then you don't have a radio.
Yeah, you got to flip those dials more often.
Exactly right. All right, Jody, now let's talk about the NBA, my favorite sport, my favorite league. You're seeing more positive COVID tests. You got a lot of players that don't want to go. We'll have Ian Eagle on, another guy you know well.
He's going to have Ian on his Saturday show this week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like us to ask? Anything you'd like us to ask Ian, the Birdman, before you get a chance to interview him over the weekend?
No, but I'll just tune in after you guys hang up on me, and then I'll know what to ask Ian with the good answers that he gives you guys. Stealing is a prerequisite in this business.
So, you know Ian, and you know he's part of the Nets. He does the Nets television broadcast, and the Brooklyn Nets. I think we can all agree because it's factual. Really don't want to go to Orlando, do they?
Well, some do. Guys fighting for their NBA lives want to take this as an opportunity to showcase their abilities and talents, but there are a whole bunch of guys that either are choosing to not go, like DeAndre Jordan, can't go because they're not up to it physically, like Kevin Durant, or Kyrie Irving, because Kyrie's just kind of like nuts, and that would make too much sense for him to go and actually earn the $30-some-odd million that he's supposed to be paid. Yeah, they're going to go, and they're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to get booted in the first round. It's the same thing that it was the last year for the Nets. For the Net fans out there, you actually have my condolences because at some point you're going to get real basketball when Kevin Durant comes back next year. But their participation here in the 8-game mini-season leading into the playoffs really isn't going to move the needle one way or the other. They're just kind of along for the ride.
You know what's amazing, Jody, to me is that the most maligned commissioner in sports going into this season has always been Gary Bettman of the NHL. And yet he was the first guy who stepped up and got his sport back on track. That, to me, has to be the biggest surprise of all the sports developments this year.
All right, but let me get on Bettman's case a second, because I've been doing it for the last 3 weeks. Yes, you're right. He led the way. He got out there. He had his Zoom press conference, and he laid out the return of the NHL. And I actually like the way they did it by telling the teams that were eliminated, yeah, you don't have to go to a bubble and play a couple of games just so we can pitch out the season. Go ahead, your year is over. I like a lot of what he said, but he said we need to determine where we're going to finish the season and where we're going to have our playoffs, and we're going to have 2 hub seat cities. And it took them 5 friggin' weeks to figure out what the hub cities were going to be right up until yesterday.
But, Jody, he had to deal with Canadian issues. He had to deal with cities with, like, Vegas. They wanted to do it in Vegas, and they had a COVID spike. It's not the commissioner making these decisions.
Well, of course it's the commissioner. Who else is making it?
So would you go and play in Las Vegas then if you were the commissioner?
No, but I think he could have seen from the day that he had his press conference, Tony, he knew that Canada was less infected than the United States, correct? He could have just mandated, listen, here's what we're going to do, guys. Toronto looks good. Edmonton looks good. That's where we're having the playoffs. Rather than for 5 weeks, wait and see what changes and what spikes up and what comes back down, I thought he should have been more direct and more aggressive in picking those 2 hub cities and letting the hockey fans start to get excited about getting their sport back. Now, they're going to get it, and they can start getting excited now. I don't know if it builds up enough excitement to get them good TV ratings.
There's no better postseason in sports than hockey playoffs, Jody. Come on, man.
It has been. You are 100% correct for the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever you want to say. That's been the case. We'll see if that's the case this year. I don't think it's a given because all the postseasons are going to be different this year. Our world is different. For hockey's sake, I hope it stays the same as it always has been, and the chase for Lord Stanley Cup is everything that it's ever been before. But I'll take a wait and see on all the upcoming postseasons.
Do you have enough television screens in your house, Jody, in your studio down there to watch everything that could be on this August?
Let's see. 3 people live in my house, not counting my lovely dog, Moxie, who's sitting at my feet, and she's not really a TV watcher. And we have 8 TVs for 3 people. So if we can't stay engaged with 8 TVs in a house with only 3 people living in it, then that's shame on us.
Wow.
You got hockey, you got basketball, you got pre-season. Well,
don't forget
football,
the horse racing.
Racing,
even
golf.
Eddie Olczyk yesterday said he was still betting on Canterbury Park in Minnesota with our good buddy
Paul Allen
doing the call from Canterbury. That's a real horse player right there. Are you betting on Canterbury Park in the middle of the week, Jody?
No. Now, Indiana Grand, that's a different story. But I just haven't meandered over to Canterbury just yet, I'm sorry to say, and I apologize for not knowing who's going to win the 6th at Canterbury today.
All you got to do is DM Paul Allen. He does the call, the voice of the Minnesota Vikings and the man who is the voice of Canterbury Park.
Okay. Or I could go to my buddy Ed Olczyk, who I'm going to speak to this weekend on my CBS Sports Radio, because I'm guaranteeing you he's betting Ellis Park right now.
Oh, yeah, we had him on yesterday, Eddie, and he said he actually had action at Canterbury, and he DM'd Paul Allen to get some info. That's how it works. You know that.
I got Paul's number. I just haven't gotten to Canterbury yet. I may have to take advantage.
You got any early selections for the Travers or the Kentucky Derby?
There is a horse. Approximately, 9 days from now, they're going to run the Bluegrass Stakes at Keeneland, which used to be a Kentucky Derby prep race, that was raced back in April, which would lead to the Derby in May. Everything got changed. All the schedules got changed. So it is still a Kentucky Derby prep. It's going to go next Saturday, not this Saturday, at Keeneland. There is a horse by the name of Enforceable that someone tipped me off to at the end of the 2-year-old campaign last year, and he said he's the most royally bred horse that I've ever seen. He won a big prep race in February, ran a less than stellar follow-up race, but the trainer Mark Cassie, who won 2/3 of the Triple Crown last year, took him out of racing, gave him a month and a half off, just started working him out again within the last month, is pointing him toward the Bluegrass. I have extensive Kentucky Derby future book action on this horse. So next Saturday in the Bluegrass, help your buddy Jody Mack out and do some rooting for Enforceable.
Enforceable.
How about that?
That is great. Jody Mack at the track knowledge
That's
right there,
deep
man.
right there.
That is deep. That is deep. How about Saratoga? Saratoga, Jody.
Oh, I got some degenerate friends who text me all the time and say, you want the latest? Saratoga's going to open for racing in 2 weeks. There is one section of the track where if you are outside of the park, it's the first turn, back corner. If you stand outside on the other side of the fence, you can actually see the track. And my buddy texted me and said, I'm going to opening day. Even if it's not open, I will sit outside with a folding chair and a cooler and my racing form and my phone to put my wagers
For
in
his
with,
phone bet account.
and watch them run in the far turn. Not the final turn, the first turn in the far right corner. That's how badly he wants to get back to watching racing. And
Wow.
Will he be screaming at the horses as they make the turn to the final stretch? Down
He'll
the
be
stretch
slapping
thing.
that racing form on his thigh.
Move that horse, Irad. Get the hell up in the irons, Irad. What is up?
Oh, right. We have tape, I believe, of your buddy out there right now. There he is. He's just watching the workouts right now.
That's the sixth horse.
And down.
That's when he knows to crack the next beer, because he's got about 5 minutes before they get into the gate. And you hear that horn. See, now that sounds like my buddy Big John.
See, we got all the sounds for all sports occasions, Jody Mack. Jody MacDonald, catch him on CBS Sports Network here in Philly and New York on The Fan. You got any other jobs we may be missing right now, Jody?
Well, there's one on, since you're broadcasting right now on Sirius XM. I haven't been on the Sirius XM MLB network in 3 months because, as we mentioned, I'm a Ben Zobrist kind of guy. There are certain years where nobody gets hurt, nobody comes down to the lineup, and Ben Zobrist sits on the bench. Well, that's been the case on the MLB network. All the guys who work for teams and also work for Sirius, there were no teams. There's no activity. So I'm hoping to get back on and do some shows when they get the baseball up and running at the end of the month.
But we do have breaking news, though, from the baseball. We have our first injury of the 60-game season that has already occurred, and it's with your Chicagoland area Cubs. Did you hear this story, Jody?
You're telling me for the first time here.
Cubs left-handed pitcher Jose Quintana, who went 13-9 last year with a 4.68 ERA, was washing the dishes in his home in Miami. The dish broke, and he got a cut in his left thumb, his throwing hand, and now he had major surgery. Not major surgery, but he had surgery to repair it, and they will not know how long he will be out until they start throwing in 2 weeks, and they'll see whether he's able to throw again. That's a big.
Well, was it just a flesh wound, or did a tendon
No,
get
they had
cut?
to do microsurgery. It was a big, deep cut. It went into the tendon area. And so, Jody, you look at that starting rotation. Lester, Darvish, Kyle Kendricks, and now Quintana. You're a Cub fan. What are you thinking?
That surely doesn't help, and they let Cole Hamels walk away, which I thought was a mistake. I thought the Cubs should have tried harder to keep him. The Braves didn't give him an outrageous contract. Good salary, but just for 1 year. I've been a Cubs fan because I'm a big Joe Madden fan, and I like Theo Epstein as well. Without Joe Madden, and I like David Ross. I think he was a great player as a team kind of guy. I think he was a pretty damn good broadcaster his couple of years out of the game, and I think he'll be a good manager, but I don't know if he's going to be a good manager. I know Joe Madden's a good manager. I am not nearly as high on the Cubs this year as I have been the last couple of years with Madden at the helm.
Well, Jody, I think this week marks the 33rd anniversary of the Fan, WFAN. Tony brought it up a minute ago. When you think of the start of the Fan, and I know you were a part of it, what comes to mind? What's the number one thing?
Oh, the god-awful studios in Astoria, New York, which many of the guys have complained about over the years. And believe me when I tell you, every single one of them was justified and on point. I was so wet behind the ears and new to the business. It all looked great and upscale to me. And then I started getting other jobs and working in other places like Sirius XM, and I found out what real studios was supposed to look like and real technology was, and the best in the business. Yeah, not so much down in the Kaufman Astoria Studios basement, but hey, you got to start somewhere, and 33 years. I'm on FAN on Sunday night, as a matter of fact, as part of the celebratory anniversary weekend. I'm looking forward to it. I still got a lot of good listeners and good friends up in New York, and they're in cooler, fancier studios in Manhattan now, but that doesn't matter because we're all broadcasting from home these days.
I don't want to say how much radio has changed since that day back in what was the year? 1987,
I think.
87, and then WIP in Philly was really the second big sports station to go on the air. Mm-hmm. First, the Fan obviously was the granddaddy of them all. But I remember when Jody Mack was reading box scores in the middle of the night, before we had internet, before we knew, we knew what the final score was, but we did not know the box score.
Yeah, you didn't know how you got there.
Exactly.
For the final.
No.
Yep.
And I would do that for fantasy baseball, something I know Harry appreciates because no matter what they say, it's gambling.
Exactly.
It always has been gambling. It always will be gambling, and it was gambling back then. And I was doing my fellow gambling degenerate buddies a favor by letting them know their information ahead of time, rather than have to wait for the morning paper to find out that.
But it was called rotisserie. It wasn't even. It was rotisserie back then, right?
Correct.
Rotisserie.
Started as rotisserie, became fantasy, and I've been playing it for since before I ever got on the air. So sneaking up on 36, 37 years now.
I see a question on our Twitch stream, Tony.
For Jody Mack?
Yes. Mount Rushmore of Jody Mack co-hosts.
You got to do it before they take Mount Rushmore down, Jody. We may not be able to go to the Mount Rushmore route anymore if they take it down. So Mount Rushmore of Jody Mack co-hosts.
Now, Tony Bruno and I have done a handful of shows.
Correct.
Over the years, just dropping in and filling in. He's filling in for my partner. I was filling in for his partner. So I wouldn't call Tony. Tony doesn't qualify for this.
That's
not
correct.
enough at bat. Can't qualify for the batting title. Harry Mays certainly does qualify. Sid Rosenberg. I know you guys put Sydney up every once in a while.
Yeah.
Sid was the most fun partner to ever work with, but also was the most frustrating partner to ever work with. At the end of the day, you were either laughing your you-know-what off or you're pulling your hair out with Sid. Glenn Macnow and I did, 7 or 8 years together.
Mac and Mac.
That was legendary.
Mac and Mac was a long-term marriage, so that's got to get its just due. And I did a solid year plus with Susan Waldman, who is, for as long as this industry has been going on, there have been few and far between true women hosts in big shows, and she was my partner when I started back up at FAN in the midday shift, and I always got along well with Susan. Not everybody did, but I did, so I would put Susan in there as well.
Well, she said this about you, Jody.
Goodness gracious!
And I think that's pretty much
exactly
says it.
right. Altogether too often she would say that when I would say something stupid on the show.
By the way, speaking of Sid, we have sad news. He just posted on his Twitter feed that he lost his dad
last night.
Sid Rosenberg, with a very, very touching message about losing his dad. He's heartbroken.
He was in hospice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we send out our thoughts and condolences to the Rosenberg family.
Yeah, we hope he was actually able to see him. Oh, good.
Oh, yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Well, Jody, it was great to catch up, my friend.
Thanks, Jody.
Guys, my pleasure. Harry, if Mr. Stewart wins this week, I'll expect my cocktail.
You'll get a cut.
Anytime.
And we have to say it
wanted
to you,
hear.
Jody. Coming on the show today, you know what we say to you? Appreciate it.
There you go.
Yes.
Well done, Mr. Bruno. Anytime you guys need me, you got my number. Either call me or Paul Allen. One of the two of us.
Hey, I'll get you in the box at Canterbury Park if you want to get up there. I'll get you in the box.
At Jody Macman on Twitter.
At Jody Mac. By the way, you follow me on Twitter, Jody Macman?
Of course I do.
Just wanted to check. You know, I can't have one of my great friends in the business forever not be following me. Jody MacDonald. No. Jody, thanks, brother. Let's give him a roaring round of applause.
Have a great 4th, man.
Have a cocktail on me, boys.
You got it.
Exactly right. You don't have to ask us twice about that. 215